There's one habit, just one, that if you start doing it today will immediately multiply your results by 10, not gradually, not over time, but instantly. And the reason you've never heard it framed this way is because no one wants to admit how damn simple it is. This isn't some hack. This isn't about waking up at 4 a.m. or writing down your goals for the 800th time. It's something far more brutal, more honest, more uncomfortable than anything your favorite motivational guru is telling you. And by the time this ends, you won't just know it. You'll feel sick for how long you've avoided it. Here it is. Do the hard thing the moment you feel resistance. Every time. That's the habit. That's the entire game. You feel the hesitation. That's the signal. You feel the dread. That's the compass. You want to scroll, escape, delay. Most people live their entire life negotiating with discomfort, building a palace around avoidance and calling it a personality. I'm just not a morning person. I work better under pressure. I don't feel motivated. Lies. All lies. Your brain is built for survival, not success. And that means it will scream like a dying animal the second you get close to something that threatens the comfort you've welded your identity to. But the second you move, not when it feels right, not when the timing's perfect, but immediately when you feel the pull to hide, that's when you break the chain. That's when you want X. Because the problem isn't your goals. It's not your intelligence. And it sure as hell isn't your potential. It's the pause. That tiny pause between knowing and doing is where dreams rot. I had a friend who wanted to start a business. Brilliant guy, talented, but every time he got close to launching, he'd say, I just need to finish a few more things first. And years went by. He's still preparing. You know someone like that? Hell, maybe you are someone like that. You tell yourself you're planning, researching, optimizing, but you're just stalling. Every success story you admire has one thing in common: they act while afraid. The phone call they didn't want to make, they made it. The gym session they didn't feel ready for, they showed up. The pitch they thought would fail, they sent it. And every time you hesitate, every time you choose comfort over courage, you wire your brain to expect weakness from itself. That's the real addiction, not phones, not social media, not Netflix. It's the addiction to relief. You're addicted to not feeling uncomfortable. You want the results of champions with the habits of cowards. But here's the truth. Pain is the toll for progress, and hesitation is the tax that robs you of it. So here's the challenge the next time you hear that voice in your head whispering reasons: just move. No debate, no delay. Move. Because every time you do, you're not just building discipline, you're rewriting who you believe you are. The single most powerful habit, the one that will 10x your results faster than anything else, is this: act immediately the moment you feel resistance. Not when it's convenient, not when you've thought it through, not when you feel ready, right? Damn. Now, that feeling of hesitation, that's not a weakness. That's the doorway. That's the signal from your own future calling you forward. But most people treat it like a red light instead of what it really is: a green light for growth. You hesitate, and then your brain, desperate to keep you safe, floods you with reasons, logic, excuses dressed up as strategy. But all of that is noise. And every second you spend listening to it, the fire inside you dies a little more. Here's what no one's telling you: momentum doesn't start with clarity. It starts with movement. You don't need a plan. You need a push. You think successful people have some secret formula. No, they just move. They feel fear and take the step anyway. They feel doubt and send the email anyway. They feel exposed and launch the project anyway. Because they understand something most people never learn: waiting is a lie. Later is where your ambition goes to suffocate. Later is a padded cell dressed up as logic. And every time you choose later over now, you teach yourself to expect comfort over action, and you become the kind of person who talks big and moves small. But when you flip that script, when you feel that flicker of discomfort and immediately act, everything changes. You override the brain's panic system. You train your body to trust itself. You begin to believe deeply that you are someone who does. That's what this habit is really about: not just 10x in your results, but 10x in your self-respect. Because the fastest way to build confidence isn't through affirmations or vision boards. It's by watching yourself follow through when every part of you wants to run. That's how warriors are built. That's how empires are started. That's how lives are changed, not through grand plans, but through split-second decisions. The moment resistance shows up, you move. No negotiation, no delay, just action, just now. Because once you master the first second, the rest of your life becomes unstoppable. The moment of hesitation is where most dreams die. Not the failure, not the rejection, not the mistakes, the pause, that tiny invisible space between the spark of intention and the act of execution. That's the graveyard where ambitions are buried. You get the idea. You feel the pull. You know exactly what needs to happen. And then you wait. You hesitate. You breathe too long. You scroll. You say, I'll do it in a minute. And that minute becomes a month, a year, a lifetime. This is the trap, the psychological ambush no one talks about because it doesn't look dramatic. It doesn't look like a big breakdown. It's subtle. It's soft. It's reasonable. It's you saying, let me just get organized first. Or this week's too crazy. I'll start Monday. But let me tell you something raw. Every person you've ever admired learned how to murder that pause. They trained themselves not to wait for the perfect mood, not to wait for the stars to align, not to wait for confidence. They moved immediately while their hands were shaking, while their mind was screaming, because they understood that the longer you delay action, the more your brain starts building walls around it. That's how resistance wins. It feeds on time. The more you sit with an action you fear, the bigger and uglier it becomes. That call you're scared to make, it triples in size every minute you don't make it. That workout you're avoiding, it becomes a mountain every hour you delay. But the truth is, 90% of success is just doing what you said you were going to do before your brain had the chance to talk you out of it. You think champions always feel like it. You think they're superhuman. No, they're just fast. Fast to start. Fast to jump in. Fast to rip the Band-Aid off while everyone else is still overthinking. And that speed of action, it's not just a tactic. It's a mindset, a way of life, a form of rebellion against every part of your past that told you to play small. If you kill the pause, you kill the pattern. And when the pattern dies, you are reborn. So the next time hesitation creeps in and whispers, wait, you look it dead in the eye and say, watch me. Then you act, and the world scrambles to keep up. Discomfort is not a stop sign. It's a damn compass. You've been reading the signals all wrong. You think that tight feeling in your chest means you should back off. You think that lump in your throat means something's wrong. You think that fear in your stomach is a warning to run the other way. But the truth is, that's not danger. That's direction. That's your future calling from the other side of the wall you're scared to climb. The things you avoid, the conversations you dodge, the actions you delay, that's where your growth lives. That's the threshold between who you are and who you're supposed to be. Most people spend their lives rearranging the furniture in the same tiny room of comfort, decorating their limitations and calling it home. But growth, evolution, transformation, that's outside, and it's not a pretty path. It's full of friction, sweat, awkward silences, public stumbles, and every part of your nervous system is going to scream, get me out of here, but hear me now. Discomfort is data. It's feedback that you're doing something that matters, that you're pushing into territory your old self can't survive in. And that's exactly the point. Because you don't become stronger by staying where it's warm. You don't evolve by doing what's familiar. You become something else entirely by stepping into the fire and refusing to flinch. That fear you feel, it's not the enemy, it's the border. And beyond that border is the version of you that doesn't quit, doesn't shrink, doesn't need permission. The version of you who leads, who inspires, who finishes. And here's the twist most people miss: the more you lean into discomfort, the more comfortable you get being uncomfortable. It stops feeling like pain and starts feeling like purpose. It becomes the thrill, the signal you're alive and expanding. That's why the ones who win don't chase ease. They chase the edge. They look for what makes them nervous and run straight toward it, because they've learned that the cost of comfort is everything they ever wanted. So next time your body tenses, your palms sweat, your heart races, that's not a reason to stop. That's the flag. That's the map. That's your next move. Chase it. Own it. Become it. Every act of courage rewires your brain to expect strength instead of weakness. That's the hidden magic no one talks about. Every time you do the thing you're afraid of, every time you speak up when your throat's dry, every time you hit publish with your stomach twisted in knots, every time you show up to a challenge that makes your knees shake, you are not just changing your results, you're changing your identity. Most people live in a mental loop built from their past. I'm not consistent. I always mess this up. I'm just not that type of person. And you know what's messed up? They're not even lying. They're just recycling the same story they've always believed because they've never done enough to break the script. But the moment you act with courage, the moment you show up in a way that contradicts your past, your brain takes notes. It rewires the loop. It updates the code. Suddenly, you're no longer someone who hesitates. You're someone who moves anyway. Suddenly, you're not someone who avoids fear. You're someone who uses it. And here's what makes this powerful beyond belief. Your brain is always watching you, always. And if you back down, delay, flinch, it quietly files that under expected behavior. So the next time something hard comes up, you feel that same weakness because your brain remembers how you handled it last time. But the reverse is also true. When you step up, especially when it's hard, your brain upgrades the narrative. It says, oh, we do hard things now. We don't run. We don't fold. And you start to notice the shift. You walk differently. You speak more clearly. You stop apologizing for existing. Not because of some external success, but because you've started building evidence, proof that you are who you say you are. Confidence isn't built by shouting affirmations into a mirror. It's earned moment by moment by showing up in alignment with your highest self before you feel like you deserve it. So if you want to change your life, change what your brain expects from you. Shock it. Surprise it. Show it something new. Because once your brain believes you're powerful, unstoppable, relentless, your results don't just 10x, you do. 1 second of bold action can create a chain reaction that transforms your entire identity 1 second. That's it. Not a whole plan, not a 5-year strategy, just one sliver of a moment where you defy the version of you that always holds back. And most people underestimate the power of that moment because they think change has to be big, dramatic, cinematic. But transformation doesn't start with fireworks. It starts with a whisper that says, move, and the decision to listen. Think about this. Every life-altering shift, every reinvention, every comeback story you've ever heard, it all started with one small decision made in 1 single second of insane, defiant courage. A decision to walk through the door, to speak up in the meeting, to say yes to the risk, to say no to the chaos. And in that second, something cracks open, a ripple starts. You might not even notice it in the moment. It might feel insignificant, but your future, it's watching. That 1 second becomes the seed of momentum. And if you water it with repetition, if you keep choosing boldness in the face of fear, day after day, your identity starts to shift. You're no longer waiting for permission. You are the permission. That's how change actually happens, not in grand gestures, but in micro moments that stack. A single push-up becomes a body transformation. A single cold call becomes a 6-figure deal. A single vulnerable post becomes a movement. But it all traces back to 1 second where you stopped flinching and said, I go. The tragedy is most people never give themselves that second. They wait for the fear to go away. It won't. They wait for certainty. It never comes. But the ones who win, they create their life in real time with shaking hands and racing hearts. They understand that 1 second of courage isn't small. It's a spark that ignites a whole new self concept. It's not about being fearless. It's about being bold in spite of fear. And every time you choose that, you're not just shifting your future, you're proving to yourself that you're no longer the person who quits at the edge. You're the person who jumps. So what's your second going to be? Because once you take it, your old story doesn't get to follow you anymore. So here you are, standing at the edge of everything you've ever wanted, and the only thing between you and it is a decision. 1 second. 1 move, 1 moment of refusing to back down when every instinct in your body screams for safety. You've heard the truth now. Real change is not complex. It's not reserved for the lucky, the born talented, or the perfectly planned. It belongs to the ones who act, who kill the pause, who chase discomfort, who build evidence through courageous choices, and who understand that everything they're chasing doesn't begin someday. It begins now. You want to 10x your results. Then stop trying to feel ready and start building the kind of life that doesn't rely on feelings. Start living like the person you want to become right now in this moment, not tomorrow, not next week. This is it. This is the line. And when you cross it, when you take that uncomfortable action right now, you will feel it in your bones, the shift, that spark of power that says, this is who I really am. So here's your call to action. And I'm not asking, I'm challenging you within the next 60 minutes. Take 1 bold action you've been avoiding, make the call, post the content, start the thing, confront the silence. Do not wait, do not think, just move, shock your system, break the script. And when you do, don't look back. Stack another one tomorrow. And the next day, make bold your new normal. Let hesitation become the red flag that tells you exactly where to push. You don't need more motivation. You don't need more time. You need a decision. Right here, right now. This is how lives change, 1 second at a time. So go, prove to yourself that you're not who you were. Prove that the story ends differently for you. Burn the old script and write a new one move at a time. It starts now, the clock is ticking. Move.